Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the fascinating neuroscience behind what many researchers and advocates alike are calling the most powerful psychedelic on Earth, 5-MeO-DMT. We are completely unpacking the profound and frankly mind-bending science of subtractive ego death. So I want you to think about this bizarre mystery for a second because it really challenges everything we think we know about mind-altering states. What happens when you take the most potent psychedelic known to pharmacology, but you experience absolutely zero visual hallucinations? No colors, no shapes? Well, unlike ordinary DMT, psilocybin, or LSD, this specific molecule just completely shatters all the traditional rules about how psychedelics actually work in the human brain. Section 1. The God Molecule. Researchers often call this an absolute outlier. It's a compound that completely breaks the rules of its own chemical family. While a typical psychedelic journey might be filled with really vivid geometry, shifting colors, and wild externalized visions, users of 5-MeO-DMT rarely describe seeing anything at all. And the reason for that is pretty wild. You don't see visions because there's a total instantaneous dissolution of the self. There's literally a complete disappearance of the person who would even be there to see those visions in the first place. It's a sudden, absolute wipe of the ego. Section 2. The Science of Subtraction. To understand how a chemical can just erase your sense of self, we have to look pretty closely at the brain's hardware. Classic psychedelics, think psilocybin or LSD, fundamentally work by knocking on a single door in the brain, the serotonin 2A receptor. That's an additive process, right? It adds visual geometry and shifting meaning to your baseline reality. But 5-MeO-DMT, it actually binds to that 2A receptor very weakly. Instead, it knocks on a completely different door to subtract reality. And that crucial door is the 5-HT1A receptor. This is primarily an inhibitory, calming serotonin receptor. 5-MeO-DMT binds here with roughly 300 to 1,000 times greater selectivity than it does at the classic visual receptor. It's so targeted, in fact, that neuroscience shows us if researchers block this 1A receptor, the drug's mind-altering effects practically vanish entirely. Now, you might be wondering, why do a few people still report slight visual effects? Well, it all comes down to a fascinating biological loophole involving an enzyme in your liver called CYP2D6. This enzyme actually converts a small portion of the 5-MeO-DMT into a metabolite called bufotenine, and bufotenine has about 10 times more affinity for that classic visual door we talked about. So, ironically, your own individual liver metabolism actually dictates just how purely subtractive your experience is going to be. When we map out the timeline of this experience, the sheer speed is just staggering. When vaporized, the onset kicks in within mere seconds. You hit peak ego dissolution within about 5 minutes, and you return to your normal baseline in just 15 to 30 minutes. A Johns Hopkins team actually found that vaporized 5-MeO-DMT triggers a complete mystical experience in about 75% of participants. It's essentially as intense as a massive hours-long dose of psilocybin, but completely compressed into a fraction of the time. Section 3. Ultra-rapid antidepressant. But this blistering speed isn't just some wild experiential phenomenon. It actually makes this molecule a highly practical, ultra-rapid candidate for psychiatric care. It can easily fit right inside a standard clinical appointment. In a Phase 2b trial for treatment-resistant depression, using an inhalable formulation called GH001 on 81 patients, the results showed a 57.5% remission rate. That's compared to 0% on the placebo. Even more remarkably, patients saw a massive 17.8-point drop in their depression severity scores within just 2 hours. 2 hours! And that clinical trial success perfectly mirrors real-world survey data. In a Johns Hopkins survey of 362 adults who had taken the substance, a massive 80% reported dramatic, lasting improvements in both depression and anxiety. More importantly, this improvement directly tracked with the intensity of the mystical, ego-dissolving experience they actually had. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful, vivid quote regarding the 5-MeO-DMT experience. It removes the walls, the room, and the one standing in it. When you connect that 80% clinical improvement to this profound qualitative experience, it perfectly shows the mechanism at play. By taking away the heavy, rigid structure of the ego, it effectively takes away the deeply ingrained depression right along with it. Section 4. The toad problem. Okay, as with all powerful tools, this incredible potential brings a very severe real-world complication. While this molecule does naturally occur in the defensive secretions of the Sonoran Desert toad, extracting it creates a massive ecological issue. Aside from the frankly wild concept of squeezing defensive goo out of a threatened amphibian for psychiatric medicine, the toad's secretion contains cardiotoxic bufotoxins. These are literally heart-stopping poisons. Plus, over-harvesting is severely threatening the species. Using synthetic 5-MeU DMT gives us the exact identical, perfectly dosed molecule entirely without the poison. It protects the patient, and it spares the toad. It really is the only medically and ecologically responsible path forward.
Section 5. Risks and Reality.
Now, because its unmatched potency makes it incredibly dangerous outside of a strictly supervised clinical setting, we really need to walk through the crucial guardrails of this treatment. And please remember, this explainer is strictly for education, not medical advice. The risks of using this casually include severe panic, paranoia, and psychological destabilization. Most critically, combining 5-MeO DMT with MAO inhibitors can be absolutely life-threatening. Therefore, exact synthetic dosing, thorough psychological screening, continuous physiological monitoring, and highly trained clinical support are completely mandatory to keep the patient safe. So all of this leaves us with a final, super provocative thought. If erasing the self through the biological quiet of subtraction can literally cure treatment-resistant depression in under 30 minutes, what does this actually mean for the future of psychiatry? 5-MeO-DMT is a profound exception that illuminates an entirely new rule for neuroscience. It proves there is absolutely more than one neural route to healing the mind, leaving us to wonder, how many other hidden pathways to healing have we yet to discover? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped illuminate the incredible science of subtraction.